Oh man, I'm not worthy. A forbidden riff, an unknowable song. Today, we're covering an unparalleled standard, written by none other than the Lords of Rock themselves. And although it was never released as a single, incredibly, it is the most played song on rock radio. Ever. From its inception in the early 70s, it has captured the imagination of generations. And yet no one can say for sure what it means exactly. So lyrics are a mystery. Seems like everyone has a magical connection to this song. We try to solve the most iconic song in rock history, coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time, especially today. You know, if you know This Is Spinal Tap by heart, you're going to love this channel. Music Nostalgia Overload. Make sure to subscribe below right now to get the story straight from the legends. Check the box so you get all the details. Check us out on Patreon as well for even more content. So it's time for another edition of our series, The New Standards. In this show, we take an in-depth look at songs that transcend genre, decade, and trends. You know, songs that have become universal touchstones in our culture and our society. And this one's at the front of the line. I've waited a long time to cover this because, frankly, I didn't feel worthy. I mean, none of us are really worthy. It's the song that all songs are judged against. It's an undeniable masterpiece, a song that many hail as Led Zeppelin's greatest. It's Stairway to Heaven.
Flying the stairway to heaven.
Now, Led Zeppelin's untitled fourth album, commonly referred to as 4, also Zoso or The Runes, is no doubt one of the greatest collections of rock ever put to vinyl. 4 is one of the top-selling albums in history as well. As of 2021, it sold over 24 million copies in the US alone. Worldwide, it's sold over 30 million copies. Some even say 37 million. I think it's more than that. We've covered the background of this elegant album before in our episode about Black Dog, so I won't repeat myself here. If you're interested in that, I will put a link down below where you can watch it. But I'll just briefly note that 4 contains 8 iconic songs ranging from frenzied rock to tranquil ballads. Side 1 showcases one of the strongest front ends of all time. You say that a lot when you're talking about Zeppelin. There's Black Dog, Rock and Roll, Battle of Evermore, and of course, Stairway to Heaven.
Said the way you move, gonna make you sweat, gonna make you groove. It's been a long time since I rock and roll.
Flip the record over, and the epic journey continues with Misty Mountain Hop, 4 Sticks, Going to California, and When the Levee Breaks.
Make a new start, going to California with an aching. When the levee breaks.
Every track on this album is worthy of its own in-depth breakdown. And like I said, we've gone to a few already. I promise we'll get to them all in time. But for now, it's upwards to Stairway. Although Stairway to Heaven is ultimately the achievement of the entire band, the credit for the song's premises goes to guitarist Jimmy Page. He started writing it in early 1970 after the band decided they needed a new song to replace Dazed and Confused as their concert centerpiece.
Been dazed and confused for so long, it's not true.
By April 1970, Page told journalists the song might be upwards of 15 minutes long, and he envisioned it as a sonically expanding piece that would progressively build towards a climax. Also that spring, Page and Plant returned to Bron-Yr-Aur, where they had previously written much of Zeppelin III. We talked about that a few weeks ago. Page sometimes told the story of the pair sitting by a fire at the cottage as they composed Stairway. Wow. However, on another occasion, he said he wrote the music on his own. And then he introduced it to the bandmates at Headley Grange. Either way, it would be several months before the song was completed in January of 1971. Now, regarding the lyrics, Plant has described himself being influenced by an unseen muse. The story goes that he and Jimmy Page were tossing around ideas one evening when inspiration struck. Said Robert Plant, "I was holding a pencil and paper, and for some reason I was in a very bad mood. Then all of a sudden, my hand is writing the words, 'There's a lady who's sure all that glitters is gold.'"
Lady who's sure all that glitters is gold.
I sat there, looked at the words, and almost leaped out from my seat, end of quote. From there, the words just continued to flow. He said it was done very quickly. Plant confirmed to Cameron Crowe that it took a little while working out, but it was a very fluid, unnaturally easy track. There was something pushing it, saying, "You guys are okay, but if you want to do something timeless, here's a wedding song for you." Ultimately, though, Plant would not finish writing it until recording day, actually. While his bandmates laid down their parts, Plant was in the back of the studio putting the finishing touches on his lyrics. When he was told it was time to record the vocals, he said, "Oh, really? Well, I'm not finished with the lyrics. Can you play it again?" And he went back to scribbling away on his pad. So cool. However, when Robert Plant finally did step up to the mic, everyone was blown away. And Page was convinced, without a doubt, from that, Plant was in a class all his own as a songwriter.
Really makes me wonder.
Musically, Stairway to Heaven contains a broad sweep of styles in the nearly 8-minute journey from its quiet pastoral intro to its pounding conclusion. Stairway blends a ready stream of folk, hard rock, and progressive elements. Jimmy Page opens the track with a delicate, exposed acoustic guitar. And then at the end of the first 4 bars, John Paul Jones comes in with a bass recorder and then adds 2 more recorder parts to fill in the harmony. The result gives the song a definite medieval feel. Now, as Plant comes in with the vocals, his voice is expressive and nostalgic.
There's a lady who's sure.
Jones accompanies Plant on the recorder, and Page continues to play arpeggios and adds a rhythm part at the end of the second verse. And in the third verse, he doubles his acoustic arpeggios. After the fourth verse, though, Page plays a riff on his Les Paul number 1. And from this point on, the tempo starts to noticeably speed up. However, it's not until the middle of the song that John Bonham finally surges in on the drum kit. Page had intentionally designed this delayed entrance because he believed that Bonham was more effective when he came in later on in the song. And for Stairway, I mean, how can you argue this? Bonham is at the height of his craft, and his work on Stairway to Heaven is maybe one of the best drum parts he would ever record, and that's saying something. Not to be outdone, Page's guitar solo has been called one of the best in rock history. Like I said, you say it a lot with Zeppelin, the best ever. Apparently, the solo wasn't structured at all, at least not when Page was mapping out the rest of the song. More or less improvised. Page said he did 3 takes, and he picked the best one. After Page's solo, Plant resumes his characteristic high-octane vocal, and the rest of the band not a step behind. The conclusion of Stairway to Heaven is so intense. It's moving, and it's one of the, I hate to keep saying it, the classic performances of all time. As far as the meaning of Stairway to Heaven, though, this is where things get really interesting. There is a clear-cut dichotomy between what the band has said about it, what a lot of Zeppelin fans want to believe about it. We'll try to solve this musical riddle with what the band has said and what others reveal next. Today's episode is presented by Bubs Naturals, the makers of collagen MCT oil powder and other products proven by scientific research to help you enjoy a healthy life. Bubs Naturals is named in honor of revered patriot and Navy SEAL Glenn Bub Doherty, who inspired everyone he came in contact with. Glenn was heroically killed in Benghazi, Libya in 2012, and his legions of admirers have paid their respects to his legacy by creating products designed to help you feel great, generating the motivation and mobility to do all the things you want to do, especially as you get older. Bubs Naturals collagen protein will help to build muscle, control weight, promote healthy skin, fortify hair, or simply maintain a passionate, healthy disposition. Join me in adding Bubs Naturals to your daily self-care regimen. You can take advantage of a 20% discount exclusively for the Professor of Rock community. Click on the dedicated link below to explore and purchase Bubs Naturals products that will be delivered right to your doorstep. When you're checking out, type in the promo code in the description next to the link and you'll get 20% off your purchase. Let's feel great and do good together with Bubs Naturals. So Robert Plant has consistently said that Stairway to Heaven has no definitive meaning, at least not for him. But that hasn't stopped everyone and their mothership from thinking they've got it figured out. Plant has spent much of the 70s and beyond repeatedly answering questions about the lyrics. On one occasion, when he was asked why the song was so popular, he cited its abstraction and said, "Depending on what day it is, I still interpret the song a different way, and I wrote the lyrics." And then on another occasion, he said, and I quote, "I struggle with some of the lyrics from particular periods of time, and I don't know, the musicality and the construction of it is peerless. But maybe I didn't quite feel the same about the lyrics a little bit later on in life. Maybe I'm still trying to work out what I was talking about." Now, both Page and Jones concurred with Plant. Jones said that nobody's quite sure what Stairway to Heaven means, and Page prized how vague it is because it allows listeners to come up with their own concepts and visions. Even the song itself backs Plant up on this ambiguous approach.
Sometimes words have two meanings.
I mean, although Plant's interpretation may change by the day, legions of Zeppelin fans persist in their attempts to unlock, Stairway to Heaven's meaning. Theories have ranged from spiritual enlightenment on one end of the spectrum to satanic messaging on the other. Other common interpretations incorporate the dangers of materialism, Catholic indulgences, drug abuse, or have Plant's protagonist following the hero's journey. Of course, Robert is known to be an admirer of Old English lore, Celtic legend, and mythology in general, and this is where many have begun in their attempts to make sense of Stairway to Heaven. It is worth noting that Robert was reading the work of Scottish folklorist Lewis Spence at this time, and in particular in his 1949 book, The Magic Arts in Celtic Britain. Others have spotted medieval ties in the song, believing Stairway's Lady is an homage to Edmund Spenser's 1590 epic poem, The Faerie Queene. Then, of course, there are the stories of J.R.R. Tolkien. Plant would reference Tolkien multiple times in the Zeppelin catalog, of course, and although in Stairway there are no direct references to Lord of the Rings, the forest, the brook, the rings of smoke, the two paths, and the whispering wind feel like they could be straight out of Middle-earth.
Thoughts I have seen, rings of smoke through the trees.
In light of the band's comments, though, I'm not going to make any claims about what Stairway really means. Instead, I'm just going to highlight some of the lyrics and let you decide for yourself. After all, we all have our different interpretations, as has been said. At the beginning, we meet a lady who's sure all that glitters is gold. She appears to be so well off that she's buying a Stairway to Heaven. This is actually the only part of the song that Robert Plant has explained. He has said that this lady was getting everything she wanted without giving anything back.
But she can get what she came for.
Now, after the lady is introduced, Plant sings of a sign on the wall that appears to have two meanings, and a songbird who sings of how our thoughts are misgiven, or in other words, how they can be untrustworthy.
All of our thoughts are misgiven.
The third verse feels even more mystical, if that were possible. Robert Plant sings, "There's a feeling that I get when I look to the west, and my spirit is crying for leaving."
Feeling I get when I look to the west.
And this is where some see a Tolkien reference, specifically Frodo's journey across the sea to the Undying Lands.
Into the west.
And then in the fourth verse, Plant presents a piper who will lead us to reason. But he's just as mysterious as the lady. I mean, is Plant alluding to a famous piper from the past? Maybe the Pied Piper of Hamelin, the piper at the gates of dawn, or something else altogether? I don't know.
Then the piper will lead us to reason.
Next, we meet the May Queen, who is the personification of spring. Does her appearance signify a new beginning for the lady? It's quite possible, especially since Plant sings about two paths right afterwards.
It's just a sprinkling for the May Queen.
And that there is still time to change the road you're on.
And there's still time to change the road you're on.
Her head still humming from the piper's call, Plant asks, "Dear lady, can you hear the wind blow?" And indicates, that her stairway lies on the whispering wind. Fascinating.
Your stairway lies on the whispering wind.
Finally, the music and Plant's vocals kick into high gear, my favorite part. And then we encounter the lady we all know. But is she the same woman who began the song? Or is this someone we have yet to meet? After all, she shines white light. Seems different than the lady at the beginning. And as the track draws to a close, Plant ends with one line of a cappella, a final pronouncement that has become one of the most famous lines in rock and roll.
Buying a stair.
When all's said and done, we're right back where we started, seemingly left without a resolution. And I guess that's what will always keep people coming back for more. Stairway to Heaven is so perfectly vague that people will forever be trying to figure out what it means, and I don't think they'll ever get the exact answer.
Way to heaven.
So, with a song this big, it's no surprise that there are some controversies attached to its legacy. I briefly mentioned satanic messaging earlier. Well, in 1982, a number of Southern Baptist preachers targeted the world of rock music, and Led Zeppelin in particular. Rumors circulated about the album containing backwards satanic messages, and that Zeppelin had sold their souls in exchange for Stairway to Heaven. You'd think that because it's such a great song. But one preacher, Jacob Aranza, claimed that by playing Stairway backwards, you can hear subliminal messages praising the Prince of Darkness. Also in 1982, California's Committee on Consumer Protection and Toxic Materials proposed the public should be alerted to the satanic nature of Led Zeppelin's music, as if that were any of their business. We've been here before on other episodes, the wonderful classic Satanic Panic of the 80s. It was a modern-day witch hunt, if there ever was one. And Jimmy Page responded to the accusations, calling the whole situation a joke. He said, "Those records were extremely emotional. And if that's the way they interpret it, if that deep, intense emotion was satanic, then they've got no idea what we're all about." Robert Plant, he also defended Stairway. He said, "It was written with every best intention. And as far as reversing tapes and putting messages on the end, that's not my idea of making music. There are a lot of people who are making money there. And if that's the way they need to do it, then do it without my lyrics. I cherish them far too much." Decades later, in 2014, a different controversy came to a head over the song. Led Zeppelin, and Page specifically, was accused of plagiarism. Representatives of the deceased musician Randy California from the band Spirit, they claimed that Stairway to Heaven ripped off the 1968 song Taurus. It's not hard to see that the descending chromatic motif that Page plays in Stairway resembles parts of Taurus. However, Jimmy Page testified that he had never heard the song before. Not until a few years earlier when his son-in-law told him that a debate had been brewing online when he looked at that. However, the jury, they didn't agree with Page's argument. After all, Robert Plant acknowledged having liked the band, and actually Zeppelin and Spirit shared the same billing from late 1968 into early 1969 on tour. But those connections, it wouldn't be enough to win the suit. As it turns out, the Taurus motif used in Stairway was actually a common chord progression that had been used for centuries. Two specific songs helped win the day for Zeppelin. Now, the first was Davy Graham's 1959 adaptation of Crimea River. And then the second was To Catch a Shad, a traditional number recorded in 1963 by the Modern Folk Quartet. Each of these songs, recorded previous to Taurus, featured the same descending chromatic scale, making it nearly impossible to prove that Page had specifically plagiarized Spirit. On June 23, 2016, the court ruled in Led Zeppelin's favor. Now, as I said at the beginning, Stairway to Heaven, it's just universally accepted as the most played song in the history of American radio. And this despite it not being released as a single or even charting. It's just incredible to me. Monday Morning Magazine claimed that by the end of the 90s, Stairway had been played over 4,000 times a year on the 67 most important AOR stations. And the American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers, ASCAP, they estimate that Stairway to Heaven has accrued 23 million minutes of airtime, which comes out to just under 44 years. Stairway to Heaven has also sold more sheet music than any other rock song, which may in part explain its reputation as one of the most overplayed songs in guitar shops around the world. This urban legend was immortalized, of course, in the 1992 comedy Wayne's World. As Wayne tries to play the song on a display Stratocaster, he is quickly rebuffed by a sales clerk who points to that sign, "No Stairway to Heaven." Bummed out, Wayne says,
"No stairway. Denied."
And of course, many artists have covered Stairway to Heaven. I mean, if we talked about it, we'd be here for like years, seriously. A sample of it, Pat Benatar, Eric Clapton, Frank Zappa, Jeff Buckley, Ace Frehley, Great White, Dolly Parton. They Might Be Giants did it. Bruce Hornsby did it. Ben Folds, Santana, Neil Finn, Mary J. Blige. Chris Cornell, Dave Matthews Band. Smashing Pumpkins, U2, so many.
And she's buying a stairway to heaven.
My favorite studio version of Stairway to Heaven, outside of Zeppelin, of course, is by Lou Gramm. Also, the Foo Fighters did a mock cover of Stairway, taking aim at all the amateurs who have butchered the song over the years. In it, Dave Grohl, who is a huge Zeppelin fan, he intentionally carries the intro on too long. He asks his drummer in the audience for lyrics, chews gum the whole time, and he sings Jimmy Page's guitar solo outright. Point taken. This song demands respect. Also, in an interview that I did with Hart's Ann Wilson, she talked about Led Zeppelin's influence on some of her compositions. Of course, one of the highlights from that interview was talking about this incredible moment from 2012. Singing Stairway to Heaven in front of the 3 remaining members of Led Zeppelin. I mean, an unforgettable experience and the ultimate tribute. Here's just a quick clip of what she told me. Jimmy Page has got a smile from ear to ear. Robert Plant's tearing up. What did that feel like?
Nancy and I were standing behind the curtain right before we walked on to do it. And Nancy started freaking out, like, I'm really nervous. Her eyes got really big. And so we just looked at each other and went, hold this until after, okay?
Yeah.
Hold this until after the song is over. So then we went out and we did it, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger with the big choir and everything. And I felt really still inside it. At the time, we couldn't see what the Zeppelin guys were doing or feeling or anything. We were too far away. But looking back on it later on YouTube and everything and on TV, we were just like, oh, crap. An amazing, astounding moment for us. but like I said, really still. That's how I like them.
A piece.
Yeah.
It seems that everyone has their own sacred experience with this elegant song. It's like a rite of passage. It's a discovery of a strange and mystical world, a destination that knows no space, that knows no time. I remember the first time that I heard this. I had borrowed my dad's vinyl copy. I mean, he had it on both vinyl and 8-track. And I remember I boarded myself up inside my room, and I had one of those ancient suitcase record players that sounded just absolutely horrible, but not to my young ears. I remember opening it up and plugging it in and putting the record down on the platter, the needle on. It was the sound of rapture, the sound of adventure, the sound of magic. It was a journey into the unknown, and how sweet and how breathtaking it was to my young soul, I'm telling you. Felt like I'd found the lost key to the universe, the sanctified secret of rock and roll. I mean, you remember. It's a conversation that I've had with a few dear friends because it's so special. I mean, it really is a sacred sonic experience. This seems to happen more with this particular band than any other. I mean, you're talking Kashmir, Immigrant Song, all over. My favorite shared experience of that feeling of Stairway to Heaven would actually happen a few minutes later when I think I was on my third or fourth time through Stairway to Heaven, just enjoying it. I remember that my dad came downstairs to my bedroom, called me up for dinner, and he knocked at my door, and I turned the volume down, and I was kind of scared. I opened the door. My dad looked at me quizzically. I thought I'd get in trouble, for taking his record without asking. I remember he looked me in the eye, and he said one word in a questionary tone. He just said, "Stairway?" And I sheepishly, nodded. He gave me this wise and approving half smile, and he shook his head confidently. The feeling was that he knew the secret of rock and roll, and it had just been passed on to his own son, and somehow I knew that I'd pass it on to my son in due time. Again, a sacred experience. There are very few songs that have that kind of prominence, that kind of sanctity, that kind of power. And the band all knew it too. In fact, Jimmy Page summed up what many of us feel about the song when he told Cameron Crowe that Stairway crystallized the essence of Zeppelin. He said, it had everything there and showed the band at its best. It was a milestone for us. Every musician wants to do something of a lasting quality, something which will hold up for a long time. And I guess we did it with Stairway. Jimmy Page is being really modest there. With Stairway to Heaven, Led Zeppelin created the Holy Grail of music.
Way to heaven.
Hey, leave us a comment about Led Zeppelin and Stairway to Heaven. Seriously, you think that you're tired of the song if you'd heard it a million times, and then you go listen to it again after a couple of weeks of not listening to it, and it just blows your mind again. What's your interpretation? Is this the biggest song of all time, the greatest song of all time, Zeppelin or otherwise? Cast your vote in the comments below. Let's have a great discussion about this. What are your memories? Do you remember, is it a shared experience that you had with your loved ones? Let's talk about it below. Make sure to subscribe below if you like our videos. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.